it's the opposite. Now, I know, if I'm going to stereotype you, that young people just think it's boring, right? But it's not ideological rubbish, is it? It's not selling capitalism, for example. Yeah? I'm not going to say you should like it. Of course I'm not going to say that. Maybe at your age I would have thought, no, I don't like that, it's too boring, it's too slow, it's not interesting. But it's also about nature, yeah? So it's about, in a way, what I think Tarkovsky does is something spiritual. So there's something about how he gets you to experience nature using the medium of film in a way that you're almost in it. It's an immersion. And obviously it should be a big screen. Yeah? That's the whole point about film, isn't it? It's a big screen, you're in that world, right? So, yeah, that's why I would argue that Frankfurt School would put forward Tarkovsky as an example of high art and Barbie as an example of low art. Yeah? But that doesn't mean that you have to agree with it. Yeah? We've got a few minutes. We've got 4 minutes. Does anybody have any questions? I will send you the video about pluralism and political economy because it's really important for your essays and so on. But does anybody, would you accept the idea, when we come back to Hollywood, we'll talk about this, that all Hollywood films are designed to distract and sort of politically influence you in a way that makes you passive and stupid? Or is it something else? Is all social media about controlling your mind? Is all reality TV rubbish? Is there any high art potential in Hollywood? Should we accept that anything that's popular is bad? Yeah? Because don't forget, high art is supposed to be high art, and this definitely happens in the art market, it's appreciated by people who have high education. So it becomes elitist. This is the problem with classifying that as high art and Barbie as low. It's called elitism. What do you think?
I have a question.
Of course.
I'm really scared to be controversial.
In the video, you're going to be the only student that spoke. You're going to be like the star student.
But I was thinking, is there something wrong about elitism that we just mentioned?
Nice question. Is there something wrong with elitism?
Yeah.
I believe that's your question.
Right.
Okay. Do you remember last week when we talked about the 5 filters of the propaganda model of manufacturing consent? And do you remember that one of them is creating a common enemy?
Yeah.
So, from a political perspective, what is the main enemy that capitalist media creates?
It depends on in what medium.
To an extent it does, but I still want to be really, really, really general. So the answer is quite simply working class people, poor people, foreign people, women, people who are not white, people who are not heterosexual, disabled people. That's the danger of elitism. It's not inclusive. And it teaches us, number one, to accept elitism, and number two, to aspire to be elitist and to not have empathy, right brain, with people who are constructed as a common enemy. And the other enemy, of course, that I forgot to mention, of course, right now in the mainstream Western mass media, is Islam, Muslims, Palestinians.
Mm-hmm.
This is an old Christian story.
Yeah.
That's the danger of elitism.
But I do get when it comes to art, there's this beauty bit, because this is what I feel and what I see nowadays, that low art, that was considered low art back in the day, is now no longer low art. Everyone can be an artist, everyone can be in the art scene, which has its pros and it has its cons. I'm not with it, I'm not against.
I agree.
It's really nice to have, for everyone to have an opportunity and to be seen and to be heard. But I feel it reached to a point where there's no filter, or I really don't want to be so shallow, but
I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
like a lot of people that were in the social media and they entered the media itself. I don't want to name names, but like Kim Kardashian, the way she started and then now how she ended, she worked on herself and she well deserved, but everyone can reach to the high art and like and the high art scenery. So
Doesn't it really boil down to, aren't all the interesting thinkers, all the interesting creators, all the interesting artists, they never just did it to be successful.
exactly.
They did it out of sheer pain a lot of the time
Yeah.
and frustration,
100%.
and they wouldn't even necessarily do it for an adoring public.
Right.
It would just be, I love this work. And if it sells, that's a bonus. So it's the selling bit that we live in today. We think that anything that's creative has to be marketable,
100%.
has to sell. That's what Marxists will say, the Frankfurt School. That's the danger of commodification.
Absolutely.
And that's why we, as people, we're turning ourselves into products. We're trying to sell ourselves all half the time.
Yeah.
We're being miserable because we think, most people think they're not successful because they're not celebrities, they're not elites, and they're not this and they're not that. It makes most people miserable. It's actually really mentally unhealthy.
Absolutely.
And that's all coming through the media. Yeah? But I don't want to pretend that I've got all the answers. I haven't. The answers are in you as much as me. Should we pause?
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. We'll stop there.
Thank you.
Thank you.